Hey everyone, Kelly here, and today I want to talk about the books that I read in June. I also have one for May because I recorded my May wrap-up early. And yeah, so everything is a bit chaos. This will be my last video recording at this house. We are moving next week, and so that's why I'm out here on the porch, because everywhere in the house is a complete mess. So yeah, it's either like packed up boxes or just stuff everywhere deciding what to pack. And I couldn't video in the front because my husband is going through the garage and like throwing trash and stuff around. So let's do this. Hopefully we do it fast because it is very hot and humid out right now. All right, so I have been having a hard time the last few months concentrating on books, reading very much. June was no different. I didn't read much. You'll notice in this I have like 4 mangas and then 4 novels, one of which, like I said, was a holdover from May. So I really only read like 3 books this month and then some manga just because I wanted something easy, fun. Yeah, so still having trouble reading much, and so that's the way life is sometimes, right? You just have more chaotic times. So let's do these in order from the ones I like the least to the ones I like the best. And unfortunately no 5 stars, but I have some 2 stars, 3 stars, and 4 stars. So let's start with the 2 stars. I had a couple books that were disappointing. First I have Stay Awake by Megan Golden. I had read her book Night Swim and loved it, so I was like ready to read another thriller by her. And this one, my husband and I listened to when we were in Ireland. We were driving like from one side of Ireland to the other, and we wanted something to listen to on the drive, and so we kind of like listened to this on the way there and back, and both of us really did not like this. We probably should have just quit and got something else, but it was harder to like download once you were away from Dublin, so like this was what we were stuck with. And this is kind of like a, you know, amnesia type story, so let me just make sure I don't spoil anything. I'll see what we have. So Liv wakes up in the back of a taxi, doesn't know where she is or how she got there. When she goes to her house, a stranger answers the door and says that she no longer lives there, and she has graffiti on her skin that says "Stay awake." So she's writing on her body messages because every time she falls asleep, she forgets like everything that's happening, and so she wants to stay awake. And so like we're following 2 timelines, like before this amnesia happened and afterwards. And yeah, there was just a lot I didn't like. One was that like there were all these red herrings, which is great, you know, that there was like misdirection, but then when we got to the end I was like, I feel like there's like multiple plot lines that just disappeared. Like we didn't get a resolution, because like a lot of times you'll have a red herring and then or something distracting, and then you're like, oh well, this is how that, you know, concluded, so we know that's not really what's happening. But this was like, she left everything like open. It felt like I got to the end, I'm like, we're missing a few things that I don't really know what was happening, and maybe I missed it, but I was reading like other people's reviews, and I think other people were feeling the same way, of that there was just stuff like left up in the air, and I didn't really like that. I felt like it was, you know, the amnesia one is a hard one because it can be so repetitive, and we were getting to a point in the book where my husband and I are both like, if they continue to make it so she just has no idea what's going on, and we are repeating the same kind of situation over and over again, we're gonna quit. And so it was very repetitive, but not even just the amnesia, like even just the same conversations over and over again. I don't know, they could have been written a little differently. It was just not well done, in our opinion. Also, the main character is very frustrating. Even like the difference between before she has amnesia and afterwards, you're like, there should have been more contrast, because you get why she's all messed up and has no idea what's happening when she's forgetting things. But I felt like there wasn't clear personality in her before character to make it make sense. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend. I liked Night Swim, but this one was a 2-star for me. My other 2-star was a big disappointment because this is one of my favorite authors. This is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. I buddy read this with Kara from Wild Book Garden. First of all, it took us like 2 months to read this, even though we're both big fans of this author and we don't normally take that long to read her books, but we were like trudging through it. So we both didn't really like it. There was a lot of issues. This is very much a travel book, but you know how some travel books, you know, a lot of things are happening along the way. This was like basically we are traveling from point A to point B, back to point A, and basically nothing has happened in that time, in my opinion. Like hardly any character development, hardly any relationship development. We've picked up some more characters at point B, but like it doesn't feel like there much at all has happened. You could take out like that whole like 250 pages of the book or whatever, and not much would be different. And that is what bothered me. I just felt like the plot of this was completely lacking. Also, this is like romantic fantasy, and I felt like the romance was not romantic at all. I haven't even told you what this is about. So this is about a woman named Hala who, she is a widow, and she lives with her uncle and her uncle's family, taking care of her uncle. And then when so it's not her uncle, it's her ex, her dead husband's uncle, so she's not like a blood relative. And when he dies, he gives like everything to her, and the family is mad, and so she's kind of in a bad situation. And then she ends up finding the sword, and there is a man inside the sword that kind of saves her from this family, her husband's family, and now she has to go about getting her inheritance. And so that's like the plot. And so we are following Hala and the man inside the sword, Sarkis, as they travel to go get help to get her inheritance. And like I said, the traveling was just so boring. Like, so much stuff could happen in a traveling book. She's even wrote other traveling books, like the other ones in this series, the Clockwork Boys. I mean, not the same series, but in the same world, Clockwork Boys and Wonder Engine. I loved those, and those were traveling books, but like, you had exciting characters, things happening, like a lot of character development and interactions. With this one, I was just like, we're just doing the same thing all the time. I mean, Hala just gets into naive situations, and Sarkis has to save her, and that's like all we do for this whole travel until we pick up a character who I did like the character we pick up. But then it's like they're all having the exact same conversations all the time. Like, the same things are happening. I'm like, oh, nothing's happening. And then we finally get to towards the end. There was some action at the end, and I'm like, too little, too late. I still don't like the characters. I don't like the romance, because I feel like the male, love interest was very possessive, and I just really hated that. This was a disappointment. It was 2 stars. It was way too long for what it was, and it makes me sad, because I think everything else I've read by T. Kingfisher, I've either given 4 or 5 stars. So this was a massive disappointment for me, and it makes me scared to continue the books in this world. There's like a trilogy, I don't know what it's called, but it's like Paladin's Grace, something like that. And that one's also romantic fantasy, so now I'm like worried, because I just don't know if I like the way she writes romance. But maybe there'll be more plot in those. If you've read them, let me know. But this one I just felt like was completely plotless and boring, and I did not like the characters. All right, and then now moving on to my 3-star books. So I read 2 volumes of How Do We Relationship by Tamiful, and this is a manga about these 2 girls that go to college, and they become friends like right at the very beginning, the first couple of days of college, and then they're like talking about relationships, and then they find out that they are both lesbians, so they're like, let's date each other because we don't have a lot of options. And so it's like they're starting a relationship without even knowing if they really like each other romantically. And so that's kind of like, how do we relationship? So they're kind of like building their romance when they've already like started dating. And so, they get into a lot of like, not to say arguments, but like they're trying to figure each other out, because they haven't really they've only known each other for probably a few days when they decide to start being girlfriends. And so just following their relationship. And they're also in a band, and so kind of like their relationship with their bandmates and all that. And it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. Like, it was okay, but one of the characters in the relationship, she just would annoy me a lot of the time, so it made it hard to root for their relationship, because I feel like she wasn't necessarily listening to her partner. But I think that's part of the point, is that they are kind of opposites, and they really just need to work that out as they go, because they didn't know each other very well to begin with. So yeah, 3 stars, it was fine. And then I also, this is moving into 4 stars, I read 2 volumes of Boys Run the Riot, and Kato Gaku, is that how you say it? It's hard to see with all the illustrations on the front, the mangaka's name, but yeah, this one was really good. So I've tried several different mangas this year, and I've realized I don't really like high school drama, and this one is in high school, but I really liked what was going on. It wasn't just about, I mean, yes, it's about high school and interactions, but I feel like there was a lot more to it. So basically we are following our main character, Ryo, who is transgender and isn't out yet, and kind of navigating that, how to, you know, he has to wear a girl's uniform to school, and like how that feels, and then also like how to talk to friends about this, and then does he want to tell his friends? And then something that he's really passionate about is male clothing, and so, and like fashion, you know, fashionable male clothing. And so that's kind of how he connects with this other new boy in school, and they decide they want to start making clothes together. And they become friends, and Ryo's actually able to talk to him about being transgender. And so yeah, that is kind of what this is about. So about Ryo, about their building this fashion brand, about them making new friends. The second one, they get jobs, and kind of like how to navigate that workforce and all that. So I like it because maybe it's not like completely high school drama. It's just more about life in general. And I really like the friendship between Ryo and Jin. So this one was 4 stars, and I will continue this one. I don't think I'm going to continue How to Be a Relationship because I'm just not that invested in their relationship. But this one, at least from what I could tell, is only 4 volumes. So I will definitely read the other 2 volumes of that one. And then my next 4-star was the one from May. So I finished this at the end of May, and this is The Work of Art by Mimi Matthews, and this is a historical romance. And we are following this woman who, she's an orphan, but she had been living with, I think was it her grandfather, her uncle? She was living with somebody for a long time, you know, just her and this father figure who recently passed away. And so she has to go and live with a more distant relative who wants to like put her into the, you know, husband market or whatever you would call it, into society, so that she can marry a profitable husband to help out the family. And so that's kind of what the family wants her to do, but she doesn't really want to be out in society. She doesn't care for the person that the family is setting her up with. And so she meets this captain who was injured during the war, and they develop a friendship. And so it's kind of like him rescuing her from a bad marriage and all that. And I thought this was a really sweet romance. There is a little bit of sinisterness in the like person that her family wanted to set her up with, so that kind of brings some intrigue into it. And I do like the, like, you know, main character and the love interest and how their relationship builds slowly, and then, like, you know, they do have like miscommunications like that, but they do work things through, and I enjoy that when their things work through and they respect each other. And yeah, it wasn't necessarily, there was a lot of like climactic, amazing moments in this one. It was just a nice, sweet romance to follow. And I do like the way Mimi Matthews writes her characters and how the romances get written, and kind of like the longing and all that stuff, but then they maybe aren't willing to tell each other that they are in love and all that. So it has that kind of longing type of romance. Her romances don't have like sex scenes in them, so that's like part of it, is she's building that like sexual tension through the longing and all that. And the last book I want to talk about is What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. And this one is a thriller that I really, really enjoyed. I actually almost gave this 5 stars. Did I give this 5 stars? I might have actually given it 5 stars, because I was going between 4 and 5 stars because I was just thoroughly entertained the entire time. And I think after reading Stay Awake, I came home from Ireland. This is the first book I picked up and read in like just a few days, because I was just like, I'm so entertained. I wouldn't say it had like anything, you know, like in terms of amazing reveals or twists. I didn't actually predict the ending of this. I thought I had it completely figured out, and I was wrong. But it wasn't that it was a surprise that made me want to give it 5 stars. It was just that I didn't want to put it down the whole time. I was invested in the characters and the plot, and it kept moving and it kept being interesting the whole time. And so I think even if I had guessed everything at the end, I still would have thought this was a quality thriller. I was just surprised because this is Kate Alice Marshall's first adult thriller. She writes a lot of young adult and middle grade, and so I was worried that this would be kind of a anticlimactic, you know, adult debut, but I really enjoyed it. And in this one we are following a woman named Naomi, and her 2 best friends were when they were, I think, were they 12 or 10? They were attacked in the woods, and Naomi almost died. Sorry, my husband decided to, like, you know, go past me with the mower, and so I had to turn it off for a moment. Hopefully he's far back in the back of the property, so hopefully it's not too loud, so I can just finish this last book. So yeah, anyways, so we, you know, so Naomi and her friends had experienced that traumatic experience of being attacked in the woods when they were kids. Naomi almost died, and she doesn't have a lot of memories from that event. And so then we are learning about that event, and then in modern time, the three friends are getting back together because something has happened that is reuniting them. And then Naomi starts to look into more about what happened that day when they were 10, and starts unraveling some mysteries about the attack. And so we're kind of, it's not necessarily that we're going back and forth in perspective, but she is digging up more and more of what happened in that past timeline, but we're mostly following them in the current timeline and what's happening and now, being back in her hometown and interacting with some of the same people that were around during that time. And yeah, I enjoyed our main character of Naomi. She is a gruff character to be around because she's gone through a lot of traumatic experiences, but like, I just found her a really interesting character in the way she interacted with other people, unlike in Stay Awake, where I was just so annoyed with that character and the decisions she made. It's not that Naomi always makes the best decisions, but she does like listen to that fear inside her. You know how a lot of like women in thrillers are portrayed, like main characters, they portray them as like just being so incredibly stupid, making really dumb decisions, not listening to their fear and all of that. And I think that that is used for plot conveniences, and it drives me nuts. Where in this one, there are times when she makes bad decisions, but then there are other times when she's like, oh no, I'm in a dangerous situation, this is bad, and she like does what she can to get out of it. You know, like a person probably would in real life, that you listen to your fear. There is like a healthy amount of fear that tells you get out of a dangerous situation. And there are several times when she acts upon that instead of just being like, oh, I'm just gonna forget it, everything's fine, even though this is a dangerous situation. Like, no, come on, we have to listen to our danger responses. And so I feel like she's a smart main character, or like just a normal main character of like, this is how a person would really react. We sometimes make stupid decisions when we're under a lot of stress, and then sometimes we actually listen to our like fear response. And so I enjoyed her as a character. I felt like all of the stuff that she was investigating and you know, remembering and experiencing was interesting the entire time. So I would definitely recommend this. I enjoy just the way Kate Alice Marshall writes. This is only the second book I've read by her, but almost all of her books sound interesting to me. So after reading this one, I've read a young adult and now an adult by her, that I want to continue and read all of her books because I just think she's a good writer, keeps me entertained. I like the way she writes characters, and this one did end up surprising me at the end. Like, not everything was a surprise, but there was some stuff I was like, oh, I did not actually see that coming. And it's not like it came out of left field. It was just, it was just cleverly done, I feel like, the conclusion. So that one was, I mean, probably a 5-star. I'm saying this is like a tentative 5 stars. I don't want to commit because I don't know if this is actually a 5-star book, or if it's because so many thrillers I have read this year have been so disappointing that this one I was like, finally, a thriller that kept me entertained the whole time. So I'm gonna say it's a 5-star because I just really enjoyed it. And that's it for me. Those are all the books I read in June. I don't know how July is going to be because, you know, my books are mostly packed away except for one little box, and we'll be, you know, moving and in an empty house and having to, like, you know, unpack everything and get the kids settled and, you know, experience our new location and everything. So I don't know when you're gonna see me again. Might be a few weeks before I can do another video, but by then I will be in Minnesota, so there'll definitely be a different background. I hope you are having a wonderful summer, and I will see you next time. Bye.